Hey guys, Matt Walksler here. We're back in the shop with one of the most crucial parts of a Knucklehead engine build today. We're working on the heads for the 1937 Harley-Davidson Knucklehead raffle bike. So what I've got here on the table in front of me is a pile of incredibly rare parts, and there has been so much work go in to where we're sitting at today. I've got the heads ready for final assembly. I've got them painted up fresh. I'm going to take you kind of through all the processes here. Part of what makes the Knucklehead so special, really ingenious work from William S. Harley, and again, an engine that would affect and influence everybody's engines really from that point forward. So the Knuckleheads, guys, 1937, starting right here, 1 year only. Knuckleheads, okay? So Knucklehead came out in 1936 through 1947. It was produced, and there were running changes throughout all of those years. By 1937, they're starting to refine a little bit. They made some changes to the head casting itself. Now, as you guys can see, these have been reconditioned, reworked. We've got brand new valve seats with a beautiful 3-angle valve job. I've already hammered in the guides. Now, like I said, to get to this point, to final assembly, is incredibly difficult when you've got parts that never knew each other. Sometimes when you take an engine apart that's been together for a long period of time, everything's been fit, everything's been run together. So you pull it down, replace what needs to be replaced, and it usually goes back together pretty quick. This engine, now as you guys know, Joe, our pal Joe Gardella up in Michigan, assembled this basket case 1937 Harley out of an amazing assemblage of original components. Many of them never knew each other. So when you fit a top end, especially with parts that never knew each other, lots of fitment. If it takes 60, maybe 70 hours sometimes to rebuild a Knucklehead engine like that, I bet every bit of 40, 45 hours are just in the head. So I've got an immense amount of work so far. Now what we've got are the original heads, 1937, 1 year only. Now these rocker cups here, part of the integral function with the Knuckleheads. These rocker boxes, the way this works, valves seat down in the combustion chamber, hemispherical head combustion chamber, by the way. The valves seat in the combustion chamber, valve springs right here. These are your rocker arms. It's an overhead valve engine. These have all been set up, again, 1937 rocker boxes. These are an integral function to the heads as well. These are actually vacuum chambers. So as oil is pumped to the top end from the lower end, okay, this is the cam cover of your engine. Right out here, you've got that dry sump oiling system pumping oil from the oil tank down into the lower end of the motor. Oil actually is pumped up through the cam cover into the rocker boxes. So from the oil feed line out of the cam cover, there's a banjo fitting right here at the front of the head on the early engines, and lubricates all throughout the top end. It's really pretty genius stuff, okay? So William S. Harley designed this top end. The rocker box is drilled with multiple passages. The rocker arm shafts for the rocker arms themselves are drilled with oil passages. The rocker arms are drilled with oil passages. So every part of this top end is pressure lubricated from that oil pump down below. So really pretty incredible stuff. Now I've got all of these parts fit just perfect, okay? You got to set up your rocker arm end play clearance. You've got to set the seals up inside. Of course, all of this stuff has to be as clean can be. You don't want a speck of dirt in any of this. All of the cups, the lids for all of the cups have all been specially fit. Again, hours and hours and hours and hours of work have gone into this engine, and we're right about at the point where it all goes together, guys. So I'm going to get to assembling, and you guys tag along for the ride. Okay, we got intake and exhaust. Now for the valves, springs, keepers, and collars, we're using Kibble White components. Kibble White is one of the standards in top end gear. So the valves, beautifully coated nitride valves. We've already lapped in all 4 valves, 2 intakes, 2 exhausts. Springs, genuine replacement Knucklehead springs from Kibble White, as good as it gets. Keepers and collars, just the same. So these guys make absolutely incredible stuff, and really, when it comes to rebuilding Knucklehead engines for use, when you can't use original new old stock components, kibble white's the answer. So a little bit of lubrication on everything. Now, one of the big things about assembling a top end, guys, clean workspace. It's got to be as clean as it gets. And right here, everything is looking really sharp. So excited about all of this. Genuine Harley-Davidson valve spring compressor tool. Further. Beautiful. One down, 3 to go. Beautiful fit. As you can see, valves are installed, clearance on both spring cups. Just beautiful. As I said, immense amount of work to get to this point. One of the crucial fits of the head is not only the exhaust seat, but the clearance in the valve guide itself that the valve has. When we set these up, I believe the factory calls for 4.5 thousandths of an inch factory spec. I like to fit them just a hair looser than that, maybe 5.5. I believe when it says when they get to 8 to recondition your head. So that'll be tens of thousands of miles for this top end, hopefully. Going to be a lot of great running miles under this engine. Parts that never knew each other. And again, guys, got everything fit really just how we like it. So it's coming together really nice. Lapped in the valves yesterday and blued the seats, made sure everything was sealing and seating properly, and this is going to be one sweet top end. As you guys can see, I was talking about lapping in the valves. I don't know if you can get a close-up here, Steve, and see the finish. You see the shiny part of the valve. That's the seat. It's a 45-degree angle. We've got where they've lapped in there. That's the gray part, and as you can see, it's consistent all the way through. Just beautifully lapped right there in the center of the seat. Going to be miles of trouble-free service. Now, the top end, that's where your horsepower comes from. So the way those valves seat, incredibly crucial. The way that it oils, incredibly crucial. That's one of the things that made the Knucklehead such a large improvement. One, it was overhead valve. Overhead valve, you get a lot higher compression. These engines tend to be right around 7.5 to 1. Now that's up from about 4.5, 5 to 1 from your standard JD models of the era. So the VL era is probably about maybe 5.5, 6 on the high compression ones. The Knucklehead, again, 7.5. You get considerably better airflow. Again, all new design parts. It's one of the genius elements of Harley-Davidson's 120, 119 year history right now. The Knucklehead, that's what made them all go like they go today. All right, guys, and there we have it. 4 installed valves. Now we can get to the rocker boxes. That's what actually lifts the valves themselves. We'll start back here on the front. Now again, all this has been set up with brand new James gasket seals. Again, vacuum chambers. If these don't seal properly, you've got no vacuum, you can't drain the oil out of your top end. You're going to have problems right from the start. So all of this has been meticulously fitted over time, and will be as slick as it gets. Just a few minutes. Yep, excellent. That's going to seal just right. I love it. Fantastic. Okay. one of my engine building mentors, Marty from USA Racing. I spent hours and hours on the phone with Marty, my hot rod drag knucklehead. I kind of call it a Marty motor. Everything inside of that motor, every idea on how to hop it up, I got right from Marty. One of the secrets that we use for sealing the top end is this Seal Packing 103. It's actually a Toyota product. Look at it just like Marty does. You know, if a Toyota can go 100, 200, 300,000 miles without leaking a drop of oil, it's perfect for a knucklehead. So here we go. It's not hard setting. It's a great gasket paste. You could actually run this Toyota black instead of running base gaskets on your engine if you've got good, clean, smooth mating surface. Wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless you get all the machine work done. But I can tell you, for sealing up a top end, this stuff works as good as anything I've ever used. Now, the cups themselves, you'll notice there's a top and a bottom. These are the oil cups. They actually allow the oil to collect around the valve spring that's sprayed in through the rocker arm and rocker arm shaft. Each of these cups and their tops have been fitted long before we bolt the engine together. So as this stuff comes together, it's incredibly important that it all fits perfectly. Remember, you've got pressurized oil to the top end. One of the things about the Knucklehead, and by the way, guys, I did forget to mention the 37 heads, and 36 and 37, they actually had partially enclosed rocker arms. Kind of a messy setup. Partially exposed rocker arms, excuse me. It's kind of a messy setup. So by 1938, they offered a retrofit kit to be able to outfit your earlier Knucklehead with the later style valve spring cups. And really a preferable setup. If a bike's going to be judged by the AMCA, you're likely going to want to put the earlier style cups on it. This particular machine, we want our raffle winners to ride their motorcycles in. A lot less messy of a setup. It stays incredibly sealed on the top end. Ride it for miles and hopefully stay dry. So here we go. One. These bolts hold the rocker box down to the head. Remember, when you're under running conditions, you've got considerable valve spring tension. Now, the knuckleheads themselves have a combination of what we call diving boards here that hold the rocker box, and then in back there's these ears up top that hold the rocker arm itself. All four of those points are subject to breakage if things aren't fit right and bolts aren't tight. So as your push rod lifts the valve, lifts the push rod in here, big force is exerted on these two bolts here. So we want to make sure that the threads inside of the rocker box are good. Everything is nice and as factory. Put it all together, and we're going to make sure these are tightened down. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. A genuine pair of 1937 Harley-Davidson knuckleheads, all assembled, looking fresh. As you can see, combustion chambers. Look at the inside there, Steve. Everything's looking just fantastic. Like I said, new kibble white valves, original Harley-Davidson rocker boxes, rocker arms, rocker arm shafts, original Harley-Davidson valve spring cups, the retrofit type that keep the top end dry, original tin tops. Actually, this is kind of a neat feature of the 37 and 1936 Harley-Davidson knuckleheads. This is actually a blowout valve that could allow you to blow out contaminants inside the top end of the engine. It's just a small fitting, only seen on 1936, 1937 heads. So really amazing stuff, guys. These are ready to bolt on in relatively short order. We're going to get to mounting the cylinders, installing the pistons, cylinders, heads will go on, adjust the push rods. We'll be dropping that thing in the frame in no time, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch up with you next time.